Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Art Baudo, Principal Product Marketing Manager here at AWS, and I'm with my co-host, Fiona.
Hello, everyone. My name's Fiona McCann. I am a solution architect in the public sector, and we're here with another person. Vishal, would you like to introduce yourself to the crowd?
Absolutely. Thank you. Hey, everyone. My name is Vishal Mamagadi. I'm the product manager for EC2 Mac instances. I'm super excited to share with you what EC2 Mac is and actually walk through a live demo today.
Yeah, so we talked earlier when I was talking to Willem about the importance of EC2 Mac and how AWS is the only major cloud provider to have EC2 Mac instances. And we started those Mac instances back in 2020?
Yep, that's right. So it's actually a really cool story I would love to just share with the audience here today.
Yeah.
It's around, typically, whenever you want to build an iPhone or an iPad app, before EC2 Mac existed, what customers used to do was basically they used to buy a bunch of Mac Minis or Mac Studios, sort of rack them, stack them under their desks. And in fact, one of the key foundations of EC2 Mac started when our own teams at Amazon, Prime Video, the Twitch teams want to build and compile their apps. They came to EC2 asking, hey, you guys do Windows and Linux workloads, why can't you do Mac?
Right.
And so it started back in 2020, and now we've grown to about 5 different instance types covering both Intel and Apple Silicon. And we're super excited to continue innovating as Apple innovates in their Apple Silicon as well.
Yeah, and that shows the growth that we've talked about today across the board. But Mac instances, when we began, were only available as the x86 or the Intel-based silicon, and then today, as more iterations have been there. Yeah. And I think Willem mentioned, people still using that very first M1.small instance, and in the case here, there's a lot of people still using those initial instances, and we understand many of you have x86-based Mac instances as well. Maybe we should talk a little bit to people about how they can start with that development or show that development lifecycle.
Yeah, absolutely. Too. Yeah, absolutely. Would love to jump into a demo. And if you're joining us today, would love to learn if you're building or testing an application. Would love to learn, what app it is and what's your favorite, Apple Silicon computer to run on.
Yeah. We do have developers watching, I believe.
Yeah.
Surely someone here has an application.
Yeah. And what is there? There's 34 million Mac developers.
Yes.
So I'm hoping
you've got to have one of them.
Somebody is out there doing
one of
development.
You has to be out there.
Right?
And if you're not using EC2 Mac, I want to learn how we can get you on EC2 Mac as well.
Or after today, I think our objective is to show you how to get started with that demo and show people how to get started using those Mac instances and how easy it is to do your development here as well.
Yep.
So I think the first thing that we're going to show folks here is we have a picture of a Mac Mini to show everybody. This is, why don't you tell everybody what the photo is?
Sure,
here,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, let's see it.
Want to take our customers directly into our data center. So this is an example of a Mac Mini ingested into our actual data center server here.
Sitting right there.
Exactly.
Plopped right in.
Yeah.
It just reminds you of that stack underneath
It
your desk.
looks like it's sitting under my desk.
It's right here. I'm looking down as if there was something
as if there's something there. It's just my shoe.
And taking a journey through time here, this is the first Mac Mini that we introduced in AWS as EC2 Mac. So this is the 2018 Intel Mac Mini, and essentially it's connected with our Nitro system. I'm sure there should be sessions coming up about the Nitro system and how it empowers, the resiliency, redundancy for your workloads. But essentially, we take one of these Mac Minis, connect it with some PCIe to Thunderbolt ports, and eventually you get allow you to run macOS workloads in the cloud here. So a lot of engineering work, a lot of complex permutations and combinations of how to make hardware work from 2 different companies as well. Right. But we were able to do it, and our customers love our products today. Yeah,
I think that's a great. And when we look at this image here, we've talked before, Fiona, today about the Nitro system as well. This is an example, this wouldn't be possible without that Nitro system and the Nitro cards. So let's show people, talk a little bit about the development lifecycle of those Mac instances here. Maybe we can. I think we had one more slide we wanted to show people on that before we get into this demo here. But So talk about the life cycle, because I think that and how people can get started in this life cycle on AWS.
Absolutely. So as many of you know, if you're Apple developers or if you're not Apple developers, the design code and develop phase that's up on the screen here can be done on non-Apple hardware. But when you actually want to publish to the App Store, you absolutely need to run it on Xcode.
It has to be on Xcode.
It has to be on Xcode.
This is where it gets tricky.
We have people on both sides of the table here, but that Xcode can only run on macOS, and macOS can only run on Apple hardware.
Okay.
So hence, it's really important to eventually just make sure that you need Apple hardware, and that's
Right.
where we enable that scalability going forward.
So that means that whatever developers that we have listening in right now who've made an application for iOS, they've made it on Apple hardware.
Yep, absolutely. They have to do that. And so I think, as I said, the screen says there are 34 million developers. And so if you haven't shared what app you're working on, would love to learn about that.
We don't have anyone yet,
No,
guys.
no, no.
Let us know what you've built.
I know someone is developing
Yes,
an app.
yes,
I know.
yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to
Mac
be stuck with
developer.
apps.
And
we've
as
done.
Apple continues expanding the platforms, the latest one being Vision OS with the Vision Pro, more and more Apple developers are coming on board as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about the Vision Pro. I also encourage people, we've done demos about utilizing Vision Pro as well for those developing Mac. And for Vision Pro, folks who haven't used Vision Pro, take it out, check a look at it online. It's pretty cool technology as well. So I think it's time to start with a demo here to show
think we
people
should.
how to get started with these Mac instances.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe we have a pre-recorded two-step process here, and then we'll go into a live demo as well. I think we should be ready to click play.
And why do we have
Yeah.
pre-recorded to get
Yeah,
started?
so the actual allocation and launching of the instances takes a few minutes, so we would just
Okay.
want to make sure we have it ready up and running. But then I'll go live afterwards to actually connect you to the machine. So essentially here, we're going to be doing a first step, and it's called allocating a dedicated host. For those watching, a dedicated host is basically just like taking possession of a Mac Mini. So all you're doing is you're taking the full Mac Mini box, and these Mac instances run on dedicated host tenancy, which means that security-wise, you are the only customer running on these machines.
So I have to have a dedicated host
Yes,
if I want to use
on
macOS.
AWS EC2 Mac, you have to have dedicated host.
Got it.
It allows you to basically get the best performance as if the Mac was sitting right next to your desk. So you get
Got
full
it.
access to the GPU, CPU, and RAM on these machines.
Okay.
And so essentially, we're going through these machines here, and I went through the process to allocate them, and then we have actually allocated the dedicated host.
Okay.
And eventually, we're going to go on to the next demo here, which is actually how do we launch a Mac instance on this dedicated host.
So it's
All right.
it's two steps. So first
Exactly.
we're getting the dedicated host,
Yep.
then we get the instance.
Yep, the dedicated host was instantaneously, within less than a second.
Okay.
And now we're actually going to go in and launch the Mac instance here. So we're going to go in and click the Mac instances.
Okay.
And so here, doing the same thing, I'm going to just give a sample demo name here for the Mac instances. We at AWS EC2 Mac also provide AWS vetted macOS images. And so just for this demo here, we've been using, I believe, 15.3.1. We obviously have the latest ones as of yesterday, and we're continuing to launch the latest ones as well.
I think that's a theme, by the way, the latest images
Right.
and stuff that AWS has deployed here
Exactly.
as well.
So I'm
Okay.
just going through some of my standard security processes, ensuring the security groups are all set up, ensuring that my key pair is there, and I'll be referencing some of that in the next slide where I get to the demo. But essentially, we're going through. The last thing we have to do is just make sure that we are launching this Mac instance on the dedicated host that I just allocated.
Okay.
So that way, we're going through down here. We're going to choose the dedicated host ID, and eventually, when you click launch instances, it should come up.
Takes
in
us longer to scroll down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
scrolling up. There we go.
Click
Cool.
on the right.
A lot of
And
configurations.
it takes a couple. How long? About how long does it take?
About 5 minutes-ish to
Okay.
launch a Mac instance, but
Okay.
eventually once it's up and running, I'm actually going to take over now and show you this ready-made
Absolutely.
instance.
So 5 minutes have just passed
Yes.
in the blink of an
Right.
eye. It's now set up.
Yep,
So let's
absolutely.
go to the live portion of it. Perfect. So some of this we have to do in that recorded fashion because it takes a little bit.
Yep.
We don't
So
want you all
sometimes-
sitting around for 5 minutes just waiting.
Do, do, do. There's only so many times
Awesome.
we could sing a song.
So we're, hope everyone's able to see my screen here.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it slightly bigger for folks.
Thank you. It's good for me. Make it a little bigger.
Let's
All right.
do that. Perfect.
Perfect.
Cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually going to SSH into my Mac machine and just show you that we're actually running the macOS version that I told you about earlier.
All right, here
you
we
can
go.
see right there.
15.3.1.
Yep, 15.3.1. Again, we have the latest. This is just for the demo version that I'm using this, but we are keeping track with whenever Apple
But it makes
releases.
sense. People may be on multiple versions,
Exactly.
right? You may be running with multiple versions at the same time,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
So-
So to be completely honest, we have customers still running macOS versions from about 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so some customers, with their unique workflows, and that's why we offer the selection, right? You can choose what you want
Right.
For your unique workloads, your security posture, and we don't force anything upon
So you can just go to that earlier drop-down that you mentioned
Exactly.
and just select whichever version that you're doing the
Exactly.
development off
Yep.
of
Perfect.
as
Yep.
well. Is anybody out there using 15.3.1? Maybe we can find out,
I do know one person responded when we said, "Does anyone have an application that they built on Mac?" One person said, "Sorry, window dev." So Jasper Work 65 is not our person. That's part of the 34+ million developers.
I mean, look, my own phone is an Android phone, but I mean, there are a lot of people with iOS devices and iPhones out there, right?
Exactly.
And you probably, even if you have an Android phone, you probably want to be, sending an app to that market.
Absolutely.
So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of developers out there.
It's gotta be.
Okay, let's go back to our demo here. So now we know that we're in the exact version that we had launched before. So we're at 15.3.1. All right, take it from here.
So there's one intermediary step that is listed on our technical docs. I just skipped it here because I'm just setting a password. So it's just something very simple. Essentially, the experience that I'm going to walk you through is exactly what a Mac screen would look like if you had a Mac sitting on your desk. So as every user there, you need to set up a password. So I've done that previously before this demo. So I'm going to put a step up here. But before I do that, I just want to explain what that step does to the viewers out there. So we're going to start what Apple Remote Desktop. It's our VNC server essentially, and it configures the agent. It starts the machine. And it grants all the privileges. So I'm just going to run that command. This is all going to be available in our technical documentations.
Perfect.
Maybe we can drop a link to some of that tech documentation into the chat channel. Excuse me, for everybody to take a look at as well. It's pretty standard doc that we have here for excuse me for the Mac instances.
Cool. So we just started Apple Remote Desktop, and then I'm going to actually exit this process now because we're actually going to initiate a port forwarding to port 5900 to make sure that I'm able to connect to the Mac instance from my own computer here. So I'm just going to type in an exit command, exit out of there. We're out. Now we're actually going to SSH back in, but we're actually going to do it with the port forwarding. So
here we go.
So here you're going to grab this.
There it is.
There it's back up, right? So this all we're doing is it forwards my local machine, port 5900 to the EC2 Mac instance port 5900.
Perfect.
All right, cool. Now comes the fun stuff. So I'm going to move.
I like the word fun.
I've opened up.
You got my attention now.
Yeah, we had it before.
The screen sharing app, exactly. And now the cool fun stuff happens. So we open up the screen sharing app. We're actually going to start a new connection here. And I'm just going to choose the server address, which is the local host 5900. So again, I'm just starting the.
So the same host that we're having. It's the same connection.
Cool.
Good that we're leaving it up.
Yep. This is where it comes in. I told you earlier that I set up a password.
You
This
did.
is my username and password. So our standard.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Password 1, 2, 3.
Password. Oh wait, is it password?
Password
1, 2,
exclamation
3.
point.
I'm at AWS. I like security, so I'm not going to tell you that.
Oh, all right. I mean, we are too.
Yeah.
We were just giving you ideas.
I'm glad I remembered the password here. So.
Yeah. Sorry, maybe we were distracted.
Boom.
you.
We're in.
All right, here we go.
So all I did was, as I told you earlier, I set up a password, and that password allowed us to connect. I'm going to enter that password one more time as a user.
Okay.
And I am into my Mac instance.
So this looks like a Mac Mini to me.
Yep.
Just like the desktop experience that someone would have. So if I'm a developer and here we go.
There
now
it is.
we know the details about it. So it's a little small for me to read, but maybe that you can read. Give us a little of the details here. What we walked
absolutely.
into.
So the experience here should be as if, as I said earlier, a Mac Mini sitting right next to your desks. So on the screen, you can see here that this is a Mac Mini. It's a M2 Mac Mini with about 24 gigs of RAM. Our instance family name, which we did in the demo earlier, was called Mac2-M2. So that's what this is.
Okay.
You have full access to all the gigs of RAM that you have, the CPU cores. There's no hypervisor here. So the full experience you're getting. You can do anything you want. You can kind of access all the applications. But for developers who are really using EC2 Mac, you can install Xcode on this. You can actually test, compile, run simulators, all without ever needing to kind of go to the Apple Store and pick up a Mac.
And so we chose an M2 here.
Yep.
There is M1 and M4 at least. Right?
So we have M1s. We have the Intel ones. We started off with that. We have the M1s. We have the M2s. We have the M2 Pros. We have the M1 Ultras. And I can't share much, but we're working on some cool stuff as well.
Very cool. And so for someone who, is maybe used to having it sitting right underneath their desk, I mean, obviously one change is that they don't have it sitting there physically with them anymore.
Yeah.
But what are some of the other, differences operationally that, their work will look
Or are
like?
there differences?
Are there actually? That's a better question.
Yeah, right? Because if it looks like a Mac Mini,
I mean,
right?
it looks to me like I'm having the same experience.
It looks like I have the same experience if I had an M2, right? So
Is it different?
So there, from a customer experience perspective, the feedback that we get is that the performance is the same, if not better, than as if you have these machines sitting on your desk. And the reason, part of that is the Nitro system, right? With the excellent networking and storage throughput, the performance customers get, they don't feel a difference really. There are some nuances, right? I mean, obviously it takes a few more steps. So we have a lot of automation and scripts to make it easy for you to connect to these EC2 Mac instances.
And those scripts are available in the documentation that we provided
Yep.
as
And that
well.
user guide is already in the chat.
There
so
we
if you're
go.
following
Exactly.
along
So
if you're
live,
following
go ahead and
along.
check it out.
Yep.
And then I think the other thing is just, we talked about the dedicated host and getting that near real world, near kind of that experience of the performance. Excuse me. We also, I know we're talking about Macs here, but we also offer dedicated hosts and other instance types too, and you get that same kind of performance. So for folks who, for whatever reason, have been used a dedicated host at AWS, but maybe didn't use a dedicated host on or haven't experienced the Mac side of it, the performance is very similar. Right? And actually, as you mentioned, it's potentially even better than you might get when you have it set up underneath your desktop or wherever you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the cool thing, I have one more thing here that I'd love to share with folks if you're watching. We have exactly what customers are saying about EC2 Mac instances. And these are some of our customers that are using it, and they've experienced these type of metrics and build times and improvements. So you can read all about these on our websites.
These are some big numbers. I'm seeing 80% reduction in build failures.
Yep, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. The combination of the Nitro system with the Mac hardware, again, huge props to our engineering teams that have enabled this. But as you can see, these are some of the customers that are really appreciating us.
Yeah, so if you have a reduction in the fleet of Macs that you have to have, that's a cost reduction to customers.
Right.
Obviously, we're going to talk to a developer later on, not on the Mac side, but who has been using the Graviton instances. But a 4x reduction in build times. One of the things that he talked about is the importance of reducing the length of time. But a lot of developers spend a great deal of time just sitting, waiting for a build to happen.
Waiting for it to build.
Like time for coffee, right? Sort of thing. And then, we've had this. You have this increase in parallel, kicking off parallel builds as well. I think the other thing is a reduction in build failures. Is there anything that we're able to say about how some of that build failure reduction may have happened?
Yeah. So essentially, because the customers can play around with different types of AMIs, as I said, we have multiple different AMI versions. They can quickly check if one build failed with one image. They can quickly replace the root volume of that, run their workload on another one, and so the ability to deep dive and dissect the root cause of build failures was much faster than having to restart your entire machine and go through that. So that's one of the feedbacks that we've gotten is because we offer these images and capabilities to quickly test out different macOS versions, and also share these machines across different organizations through various different AWS capabilities. The entire operational process gets faster, essentially.
And as we're looking at these different Mac AMIs, what might be, a big configuration change between one and another?
So actually, the AMIs are major and minor versions released by Apple. So you might see some updates on like Xcode, the actual Xcode version with enhanced capabilities. There might be some new application that comes up. A lot of customers, maybe want to turn off like the stock app, the default stock app on the simulator or something like that. So a lot of the changes might be minor, maybe some small updates on the CLIs and things like that. But typically, developers want to be on the latest and greatest macOS version, and we enable that across different major versions of Apple as well.
All right. Wow. So we simplified it as much as possible as well. So I think, what are some of the key characteristics about our EC2 Mac instances as well? So we showcased today how first step, I believe, is to go in, get a dedicated host, log into a Mac here, get started. Are there any other kind of things that people need to know about those Mac instances in order to get started? Are there any interesting characteristics or differences?
So one of the big things customers ask us about is availability, right? Like, where do I get these Mac instances?
Right.
So we always work backwards from the customers, right? And so we have Mac instances across the globe, North America being our biggest regions, but then we also have them in Europe, APAC. We just introduced them in Canada as well. So we have a lot of different variations. The other thing to note is that different SKUs of different Macs are available in different regions. So if any of you watching have requests, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to chat with you as well. The other thing to note is that these dedicated hosts, they are essentially a reservation of minimum of 24 hours.
Okay.
So you just have to keep them. That's due to Apple's licensing terms. But again, we have a strong partnership with Apple here, and we always work with customers to make sure that this is the right product for you. So we're happy to enable any sort of testing mechanisms and ensure that you are able to choose the product that meets your needs.
Yeah, and I think we've spent a lot of the day talking about the importance of that feedback. So either you can communicate with us here.
Yep.
We have access and resources on the docs page and on our own page for the Mac instances to provide feedback to everybody as well.
And speaking of customer feedback, we do have a commenter who's saying thanks on behalf of Canada that you added them to the Canada region.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thing. That as I said, AWS is really big on customers. It's our number one leadership principle here. And so everything that customers ask us to do, we make sure to think very thoughtfully on it and actually action. Canada's been a big ask. We have other regions upcoming. Said a lot of cool innovations upcoming as well, art. So I'm super excited for you all to play around and try those as well.
Yeah. Thanks for coming and joining us today. And everyone out there, my request to you is to get started and try out these EC2 Mac instances.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.